What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to TPA 8 Geek, and today we're going to be doing a review or a comparison between two very interesting models, being the United Boeing 737-700 by two different companies, NG Models and Gemini Jets. So if you guys are excited for today's video, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on the post notification bell so you never miss out on any new content to come. If you guys are interested in deciding whether to getting the NG Models version or the Gemini Jets version, I recommend that you stay throughout this video so you can take your own decision. So yeah, with that, let's not make the intro any longer. Besides, let's get started by looking at the boxes. Let's bring those two into the frame. So let's start off by box detail. I don't have a chart to go off about this. Besides, we're just gonna do out of 10. So I mean, out of 10 should be something that we should all understand. So yeah, 1 out of 10 being the worst, 10 out of 10 being the best. So let's start off by detail. By detail, I honestly think the NG Models takes the win. One, it includes more, I believe more of a, it gives the box more of a feel to its being more affiliated with the aircraft rather than the Gemini one, because Gemini boxes are all the same. They're all blue. Only thing that changes is the airline name, the CGI, and the color down here. For the NG box, every model gets its personalized box, which is something that really makes this makes this get a 8 or a 9 out of 10. Not a 10 out of 10. You guys might be wondering why not a 10 out of 10. Well, the Gemini box, on the other hand, gets a 6 out of 10. The reason the Gemini one gets a 6 out of 10 is because it includes this very nice flap, right, that allows you to take a look inside, of course, and read specifications about this aircraft, and also read information about the Boeing 737, which is something that the NG Models does not include. So this flap is something that's really cool, in particular to the Gemini Jets models. Not all, because airlines like Southwest, FedEx, and Qantas, and of course many others, don't have this, as they're all plain white boxes, like the NG ones. So that's something that Gemini takes the win over. And then, of course, everything else is just pretty regular to Gemini Jets boxes. So Gemini, or the NG Models, wins on the boxes. On the boxes, Gemini and NG Models takes the win. So it's definitely really interesting how Gemini has the same color for each of their boxes. So yeah, I mean, but honestly, NG Models will take the win on the boxes. Now, quality. This is the Gemini Jets model. If you guys have not seen my review on this model, you can go take a look at that. I wasn't too sure of it back then, but now I'm just going to give you guys a quick skim through the model. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at the other side. Alright. Now we're going to take a look at the underbelly. You guys will see a lot of color differences here in just a second. But you can see that's a beige color down there. Not a gray, but like a beige color. This is plastic, and this is plastic. Okay. Now I'm going to give you guys a run through of the NG Models. So let's go ahead and do that, which is right here. Okay, let's take a look at the underbelly. And huge color difference. There you go. Alright, so now we've taken a look at the NG Models and the Gemini Jets. Of course, if you looked at the Gemini Jets, you would have found some very interesting issues with the model. So let's get started on those very particular issues by just putting the NG one right next to it. But yeah, as you can see right here, I'm going to have to do this differently. There you can see the cockpit windows and the nose shape for that 737 by Gemini. Here's the one by NG. This has a more of a Boeing feel to it rather than this, to be honest. The Gemini one's kind of just a note. See, it doesn't even have a shape to it. It's just like slanted down. This one has more of a defined shape to it that makes it look like it's a Boeing aircraft, like a 737, rather than this, which is just a, you know, really weird shape. And here you can see the windows, cockpit windows that is, are misaligned and way too high. So you can see here's the Gemini one compared to the NG one. Now on the NG one you can see it is properly placed and it's evened out between both sides of the aircraft, and it's right where they're supposed to be. While on here, you can see they're way up there, like way up there. Next issue, the engine. On the Gemini Jets one, the color is very different from the NG one. I'm going to see how I can do this without damaging neither of them. That's close enough. Okay, so there you have the NG color, and that's the Gemini color. You can also see a big difference in size of the engines. Yes, that is true. The engines on the Gemini Jets are much bigger than the engines on the NG models. NG models actually do look like CFMs, while the Gemini ones are extremely big, as you can see. And then, as you can see right here, the border of the engines, there's a huge, thick line of gray. While here on the NG one, you can see a normal rim to it. It's not a huge line, but it's just a simple, small line like it is in real life. This is a whole, just blob of gray paint on there. So that's one of the issues, as you can see right there. Big differences between the colors. Next are the wing detail. So you can see right here, this is a little different than the NG one. But as you can see on the NG one, you have flaps and slats all marked and everything. You can see the indentations on here, everything. You take it here, you won't see much. This is a plastic wing. This is a plastic wing. This is not metallic. This is metallic. This is metal. This isn't. These wings are completely plastic, as you can see right there. And they're lacking lots of detail. Next, we're going to take a look at the split scimitars. You can see a huge difference in size just right there. The ones in the United are extremely huge. On the United by GJ, sorry about that. While the ones in the NG are perfectly sized to the aircraft scale. The ones in the Gemini are 1, way too big, 2, the colors of, and 3, once again, a huge gray borderline. While here on the United, that's the borderline right there. Very thin. It's not huge. Now, moving along, we have, make sure I'm not missing this, we have the lack of antenna and accuracy on the antennas. So as you can see down here, on the NG one, there is a red antenna. While as if you look under the Gemini one, there isn't even an antenna down there. Not even an antenna hole, nothing. It's just empty. No antennas whatsoever. Now you look on the NG one, there is an antenna right there, which the Gemini Jets does have, so credits to them. Now, one other thing, the shape and color of the Wi-Fi box. The Wi-Fi box on here looks a little darker than the actual color of the aircraft, and it looks a little more deformed. While if you look here, it's a little bit more round, and it matches with the color of the aircraft, which is something you don't see here. So that's another issue. Taking a look down here, you can see the aircraft has 2 other antennas near the landing gear, while this one does not have any of that. So the only antennas on this model is the one that's right there. There's no other antennas on this model, which is very inaccurate to what the real aircraft is, considering these are the exact same registrations. Now, something else I did want to show you guys is the coloring of the tail. Okay, As you can see, the globe on both of them has a bit of a different color. This is the NG, this is the Gemini. The Gemini, as you can see, is a little bit darker than the NG. And the Gemini one goes into a more like a purple feeling, and then up there, I'm not sure what happened. All of a sudden, it just turns turquoise. But as you can see, that kind of, of the paint shift, as you can see on the NG one, it cuts off right about there and then continues to the next color. The Gemini one brings it up all the way up to there, and then there's just a slim bit of the other colors. You can see that right there. Another thing, the material on the Gemini one, the tail is plastic along with the horizontal stabilizers, but on the NG one, they're both metal. So the NG model takes another point on that. Looking at the wings, you can see that the Gemini one is on, as you can see for you guys, is on the right. You can see the wings are awfully unleveled. Whereas if you look at the NG one, you can see they're full on leveled, or this one are just slanted up. It's like a 737-800 by Gemini. The wings are just slanted up. This model, when you look at it and you feel it, it just feels so much more cheaper than this. This just looks so much more better quality. Honestly, you look at this and it feels so much more like firmer. It doesn't feel like it's gonna break apart in your hands. This, on the other hand, it feels just so cheap. The way of this is so much different than this. I mean, I'm sure this weighs so much more less because of the lack of metal. The only thing you could say it's metal of this is the fuselage. Everything else is plastic. Landing gear, everything else is completely plastic. So as we can see with Gemini, as time goes on, we decrease in the amount of quality of the models. We go from bad to worse, which is not good for a company. Now we're going to take a look at the NG one. Place this one right here. And I'm going to bring the Gemini one close so we can do the comparison here real quick. So we can look at the color difference. So right now we're taking a look at both models from the underbelly. At first glance, there's not much difference. But take a look at this. You can see the color in here is a lot more gray. Whilst if you look here, is more of a beige color rather than gray. So while you put these together, you can see there's a big difference in color. The Gemini one looks a heck of a lot, more, it just looks a lot more, lighter than it's supposed to be. It looks beige, while this is gray, how it's supposed to be. Now the details are almost exactly the same. Everything is almost the same. While the NG does have a lot more detail down here, Gemini does lack that detail. As you can see, NG's line, what Gemini has drawn right here, because this is drawn. As you can see, those little things right there drawn. NG actually has those indented into the aircraft, how it is in real life. So you can see there's a lot more separation between the landing gears on the NG, and here on the Gemini you can see they're right next to each other. There is a stand hole, so that is a plus, while the NG does not have one, so that does stop you from being able to put it in a stand, which is really sad because some people like to put their models in a stand. But on the APU, as you can see, the NG one, it's a gray mark, while the Gemini one actually does have a hole representing the APU, so Gemini does take that point, along with the stand hole point. Gemini Jets one has a, like I was saying, it does have a Gemini Jets hole, which kind of does bring down realism a little bit, as the real plane does not have that logo. But this one does not have a logo, which is really, really cool, because it does allow for more realism. So that's very, very nice there for NG. But yeah, everything else, just, details on both aircraft look pretty close. It's just, the NG one being a little more realistic, while the Gemini one is more of a just basic detail. It does still make these both really, really nice. Personally, out of 10, I don't want to seem rude, or a yes, ungrateful, because I was able to get the NG version. But honestly, guys, if you guys can get the NG Models version, I just recommend it so much more, guys. Like, no joke, it is just so much more superior. Yeah, honestly. Now let's take a look at something else that I found interesting. As you can see right here, this is the NG Models, and that's the Gemini Jets. The United logo on the NG Models is a lot smaller, and it looks a lot more realistic than on the Gemini one. The Gemini one, it's much thicker, and it just expands longer, which seems a little unrealistic because it takes just about half of the plane, while on the United one, on the NG Models one, seems a little more realistic. On the NG one, you can see the Wi-Fi box is placed pretty close to the tail, while here has a bigger distance between the Wi-Fi box and, you know, where it's actually placed on the NG Models. So that could be something that Gemini got incorrect there as well, because the NG Models one does look very, very realistic. But yeah, something else I did want to take a look as well was the registration. As you can see, there is some paint issues on this Gemini one, so I do want to point those out. As you can see, the blue, very thin blue line that goes across the plane on the Gemini one has a lot of paint bleeds. So that's an issue. And then here on this side, you can see the registration is kind of erased there. And then on the Wi-Fi box, there seem to be paint, you know, like dents. So that's not really good there for that model. But that could just be an issue with this particular model. But on the NG one, as you can see, I do not have that issue. The line looks perfectly fine, no paint bleeds or anything. Both sides of the registration look perfectly fine, and there's just so much more detail to the NG one than the Gemini one by just a lot. But yeah, with that, there's not much more to go over for you guys. So yeah, honestly, guys, by my opinion, definitely I would buy the NG one, but of course it all depends on your budget and which one is more accessible to you. The Gemini one is available almost every retailer, while the NG one is pretty hard to find, and sometimes it does run between the $60 and $100 range. I was able to get this one for $66. So if you can get a good deal on it, I recommend that you do snag on it. But if you have absolutely no other option than the Gemini one, I would take it as well. It's not bad, but it's not the best. But I mean, the Gemini one does still do the job. It is still a pretty cool, interesting model. I am going to get rid of it. I'm only going to keep the NG Models version of it. But it is something that is definitely really cool. So yeah, with that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Really hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on the post notification bell so you never miss out on any new content to come. With that, my name is CPA 8th Geek. I'll see you guys in the next video as CPA 8th Geek is signing off.